So Maggie, what are some initiatives that are happening with KICLEI?
So the big initiatives I would say in the last year would be we've really put a lot of work into our website. There is now a join us form. There is a support request form, so people like yourself can reach out and share, your name and contact information, where you're from, and just where you're at in the process. And if you're wanting a mini report done on your local climate action plan and a 5-minute script and a local petition, you can fill that out, and essentially I work through those and send you back information that you can share that is localized for your local council. So that support request form is a great way to kind of get this off the ground in your community. Again, with the join us form, we're able to pull groups together locally. So there's people maybe next door that are interested and you don't know, right? So we want to bring that network together. We've created a specialized ChatGPT tool that is called the KICLEI Support, and that's on the website as well. And that essentially helps with researching and drafting correspondence to your councils, information campaigns. It's basically just a ChatGPT tool that removes the innate bias that's in ChatGPT. So we've kind of done some research. How is it biased? And then we've configured that chat to remove those biases, and then infused it with information about the history of ICLEI and the FCM and the Partners for Climate Protection program, and what our concerns are with those programs, and our tone and our level of diplomacy, so that all of our communications can essentially have a very similar feel and effectiveness. So we found what was effective, and we're just encouraging people to run their communications through that ChatGPT and go for the win, because we want to win, and there's an effective way to communicate what we want with our council. So those are some new initiatives. And I will say people are concerned with AI. Actually, one of the National Observer's main narratives is that they're saying that KICLEI is an AI chatbot that is flooding municipal councils with misinformation. So what I like to point out is that over 40% of working aged adults in the workforce in North America use some form of AI tool throughout their day, every day. So this isn't a fringe thing that's happening. This is very mainstream to use various tools, and it's essentially like using Grammarly or putting your communication through an editor before sending it out, right? Like, we want to make sure that when we're communicating, our words will be read and understood, essentially. So we've also created a CO₂ calculator. That's really cool. You can essentially go to the calculator, put in your area's population, your forested areas, all your different carbon sinks, get an idea of how much CO₂ your community actually puts out, and then compare that to the level of CO₂ in the atmosphere. So say you're in a county like Grey Bruce County, and there's 100,000 residents, right? Your CO₂ contributions in the Canadian scale is very minimal, so maybe 0.26%. Anyway, it gives you all of the percentages for your CO₂ in the context of Canada, of human emissions around the world, and then CO₂ emissions just atmospherically. So if CO₂ is already only 0.04% of the Earth's atmosphere. That means that a community with 100,000 people, their CO2 emissions is very small and insignificant. So when a municipal council then sees those numbers and is being asked to spend, I don't know, like Calgary, for instance, maybe that's not a great example, but Lethbridge, we'll go with Lethbridge, a regular Canadian city, right, is asked to spend even $60 million or $20 million even on a climate action plan. It makes you wonder why, because what we're reducing is so statistically insignificant. Even if you added up all of Canada's communities, still insignificant. So a recent report I did looked at it, and if all these communities, I think 522 are signed up for the Partners for Climate Protection program, say they all did 40% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050, they would essentially be spending $66 trillion between now and 2050 on their climate action plan. And most of that would go to carbon credits, not actual upgrades in their community. So it's important to compare the CO2 emissions percentage of CO2 in the atmosphere number with the cost and ask, does that make sense, right? And that seems to be effective. So.
Absolutely incredible. Well, Maggie, I just want to commend you for the work that you've been doing. And just as I said, I spoke to you over a year ago, and to see the progress is just so inspiring. And I really appreciate what you're doing, that you are taking the time to empower regular citizens to make a difference in their own community, to educate their counselors, and to really have people see that these globalist agendas are not what's in the best interests, that they're misleading and they're misguided policies. Absolutely.